What if you could skip years of gear upgrades and land on the perfect pro machine? I've been testing out the Mac Studio with the M4 Max for editing, for AI, for all kinds of things. And if you're a pro, you're in the market for this, or if you're just curious, I'm gonna help you figure out, could this be your secret weapon? Is it flawless? No. I did run into one hiccup. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. The 2025 Mac Studio is powerful. Inside, it's packing either the M4 Max or the M3 Ultra, up to 512 gigs of RAM, up to 16 terabytes of storage. It's the same sleek shell as before, but now it packs even more power. Today we're gonna talk about if it's a fit for you, the power, the workflow wins, and generally whether or not this is the move for you, from the form factor to the final call. Now, this 7.7-inch sleek box is all about desktop power without the clutter. Bigger than the Mac Mini in more ways than one. Not a Mac Pro, but still built for the pros. Not portable like the MacBook Pro, but this level of performance is perfect for so many people. Now, my config is 128 gigs with 1 terabyte. It's anchoring the desktop, hovering between two studio displays, one of which is nano texture, one isn't. I need to make a video about that someday. And as a video editor and somebody who's really deep into AI, I'm really loving a lot about this. These front two ports, of course, are USB-C. They're not Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt's on the back. Those are killer, so convenient, as is the SD reader. Of course, even with the ports on the back, there are some projects where I need even more ports. So I do have a Thunderbolt dock that plugs into this as well. It's like a hub, and I've got all the ports on the back of the studio displays as well. So I'm drowning in input output, and that's a good thing. Now, the M4 Max here honestly has speeds that feel pretty unreal to me. So yes, this thing is powerful, but as I put this to the test in Final Cut Pro, I was seeing some frames drop during playback. If you start layering in enough effects, then even somebody who's just a video editor like me can actually push this thing pretty hard to the point where it doesn't run perfectly flawless. But it's not like with all this power, things just happen instantly. You know, you still have some render times, it's just that they're cut down. It does feel noticeably faster than my M1 MacBook Pro that I've been using to anchor the desk setup for a while. But all of this just goes to show you the more power that you can put in under the hood at the time of purchase, the better, the easier, the more smooth your workflow is going to be, not just right off the bat, which you can push it right off the bat, but also a few years down the road. And the Thunderbolt actually matters to me. There's sometimes when it's just like you're transferring so much footage, it's so high quality that you don't want to be stuck there for hours waiting, right? And so this makes things nice and fast, and I really appreciate that. Depending on who you are, things may not feel perfect. I don't want to act like I'm a salesman here. Like, let's point out the things that typically trip people up about the studio. The biggest thing is just, you're not gonna be planning on upgrading this thing, right? You're gonna pick your specs and roll, and that's what you're gonna be stuck with, so to speak. You're not gonna be coming back in and taking out or adding storage or RAM. For me, that has worked out okay. If you're gonna do a multi-year ownership cycle and you're just gonna be pushing it to the extreme for what you're doing and hope that it stays fast for long enough until, you know, it's been 2, 3, 4 years, something like that, then, you know, that's what you expect in the Mac ecosystem as a Mac buyer, and that seems to work out for a lot of people. There are trade-offs for any sort of setup. Personally, given the software, given the power, given the things that I'm trying to accomplish in my workflows, I'm fine. I'm happy with this, the way that it is right out of the box. It works for me. The M3 Ultra is capable of handling up to 24 streams of 8K ProRes and support for up to 8 displays. So let's be honest. I mean, if you wanted to max this thing out, it goes well beyond what most pros, even pros, are going to actually need. And then of course, you've got some people out there who are stacking these together using Exo Labs to go crazy with local AI. We'll talk a little bit more about AI. So I want to talk a little bit about how this fits into the Apple lineup. You know, a lot of people are out there and they're like, well, what can I get away with? Can I save a little money? Can I do something crazy with the Mac Mini? A lot of people are getting a lot of mileage out of the Mini for a lot less. Some people are like, do I need to go all the way up to a Mac Pro? Like, Chris, help me figure out where this fits. Well, the Mini is the little brother of the Studio. Starts at $599. It's gonna max out at 64 gigs. So compared to the hefty Studio here, I mean, it just inherently has less muscle. Now, the MacBook Pro is gonna cost you more like $24.99, and it's gonna have something like 48 gigs of RAM. And you know what the deal with the MacBook Pro? It's powerful, but it represents pricey portable power. For the Mac Pro, think more like $7,000. It is expandable, but it's overkill for most. So for editors, for designers, for AI devs, this might be the sweet spot for you. Of course, code compiling, LLM stuff, AI video processing, DNA sequencing, 3D rendering, all of that stuff fits here too. Now, this machine actually, in my mind, has a lot to do with AI, just not Apple's AI. If you look at Apple's website, this has the smallest Apple Intelligence, nugget or widget that I've ever seen on any of Apple's stuff, because it really doesn't apply too much here to the people who are using this. Siri, writing tools, priority messages, not a big fit for the people who are trying to buy this. That's because Apple Intelligence isn't the rocket fuel for your work here. The chips are M4 Max, M3 Ultra. Think what you could do with 16 CPU cores, 40 GPU, 128 gigs of RAM. If you're coming from an M1, this blows past M1 renders. And it also runs nice and cool. Not just power, but it's quiet power for the big tasks. I get a lot of comments where people are like, I'm sick of reviewers always talking about, oh, Final Cut Pro and video editing. Well, I apologize, that's where my area of work actually lies, so that's what I'm gonna talk a little bit about. But I would call that kind of the expected use case for the studio. You have these expected use cases, I just listed several of them, but something that's a little bit unexpected, I think, here is the ability to do some local LLM stuff. I've been using LM Studio on here, and I can run something like DeepSeek. It's not the full version quite. I could load a crazier version than the one that I've been using. But what's cool is it's super powerful, it's a reasoning model, and it works quick and fast locally. That means if you're not wanting to upload personally identifiable information that could kind of get set free out there when you upload it. There's a reason why they say don't upload any personally identifiable information when you're using something like Grok or ChatGPT, Claude, any of those. And so if you want to be able to process sensitive business documents, for instance, locally, then you can do that. Though I'm only using this with 2 screens, we're not going up to 6 or 8 screens, I do appreciate the amount of pixels that this can push. I really feel like, in fact, my desk really wouldn't even fit any other monitors at the moment without expanding. So, I can have so many apps open at the same time and not have to worry about hiccups, slowdowns. I can have tons of tabs. I don't even have to worry about it. There's so much overhead here for the kind of work that I do, both now and in the future, I feel like. It's a good future-proof setup that feels like I'm living in the fast lane. And again, it's not just the power, but it's the peripherals that I can plug in and use here. It's like there's almost nothing that's a bottleneck that holds me back aside from the portability, but I have other portable devices, iPad Pro, MacBook Pro, those can go with me. So this is kind of like an amazing anchor, I feel like, for the type of work that I'm doing. But let's talk a little bit about if this box is right for you. So $19.99 to get started, minus a monitor, minus keyboard, accessories, whatever. How does that sit with you? And that's just before you've even spec'd it up. Well, here's the thing. If you've outgrown, which tends to happen over time, right? If you're in any sort of creative field, your setup, if your workflow, your lifts, your heavy lifting is getting to the point where it's like, I think I've outgrown it, your AI workflow, your edits, just kind of the footage, the cameras that you're working with, etc., the amount of information and textures and layers and stuff if you're doing rendering, design, and especially if you want to keep everything all within the Apple family, like use the Studio Display, for instance, or even something like the pricier Pro Display XDR, which hopefully is going to get replaced here soon. These things do go together. Like I said earlier, this just fits right under the Studio Display perfectly. So the main consideration, aside from the power, right, and all the ports, is just the portability. If you absolutely need to have that portability, obviously you have to look at the MacBook Pro. Some people have said on Reddit and other places that they've noticed some weird noises coming from this. I haven't had that at all. These actual Thunderbolt ports on the back, those are Thunderbolt 5. It's like 3 times faster than Thunderbolt 4. This is much, much faster for transfers. Like I said, I have some pretty crazy transfers that I want to get done quickly. Having those available actually makes a real difference in my workflow in terms of how long things take me, those transfers. Now, the front ports there, they are useful. I wish there was another SD card slot there. So that's one of the reasons why I have to use that extra Thunderbolt 4. It's a Thunderbolt 4, unfortunately, dock, because it gives me some extra slots. I got a lot of cameras and stuff, but these are convenient and nice and just forward facing. Don't have to reach back around behind the Studio Display for those extra ports there, which actually I end up using pretty quickly and those get taken up. So it is nice to have these. I mean, I kind of consider this Apple's best foot forward when it comes to what a desk-based setup should really look like if you're looking for power. I should just mention for the accessories, I have been testing it out with Apple's normal keypad without the extra number keys, along with the most current version of the Magic Mouse and the trackpad, which have the updated ports, obviously all USB-C now. That's useful because of where this sits and because it's not a laptop. You know, if you want to take advantage of Touch ID and have that built in, then you do need to use a keyboard like I've got set up here. Unfortunately, it's not my favorite keyboard. I really like the Magic Keyboard on the iPad Pro. Like, the typing experience is so good. I don't love the typing experience for the Mac Studio paired with this normal Apple keyboard here, unfortunately. So it's kind of a trade-off if you want to get that Touch ID or not. Obviously, this is not going to have something like Face ID. So it's not the end of the world to use it like that. And actually, I use the trackpad and the mouse at the same time, because if I'm doing a video edit, I really like the trackpad. For other stuff, I really like the mouse. So they pair really well together. You know, again, that versatility, adaptability, I mean, other than the actual typing experience for the keyboard, I think that's probably the way to go. So let me know if you have any questions. Yes, this looks very familiar, but also, yes, it has plenty of really nice upgrades. I mean, honestly, who's complaining about the way that this looks? The looks are fine. You know, it looks good on the desk. You don't even think about it when it's on the desk. You're just focusing on what you're doing. You're getting immersed in that. And honestly, this has been a really awesome setup. I like this setup a lot better than I think I thought that I would. Does this appeal to you? Are you upgrading? What are you coming from? Let me know. Thanks for hanging out today. Don't forget to check out all the new iPad and MacBook Air content. More to come, of course. Subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Later.